the link to the slides. I can follow along. I don't know why Google's broke or something.
Okay, so should we just start?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome to the second. I hear an echo from somebody. Welcome to the second. Just second. Okay, sorry for technical issues. Now I'm ready to continue. Welcome to the second session of Jenkins Google Summer of Code midterm presentations. So we had a session yesterday. During this session, there were several presentations. I will talk about them later. And today we are also going to have one presentation from one of GSoC students. As I said yesterday, GSoC is a big open source initiative in which many projects participate, and Jenkins on this year joined Google Summer of Code. So it's our first year in GSoC. We made many proposals. We found mentors for different project areas, and on this year we got dozens of applications for different project ideas. And finally, we selected 5 student applications. One project was about Jenkins core improvements, actually about Jenkins web UI. About this project we are going to talk today. And there are also projects related to plugin ecosystem and to project infrastructure. Now we have 4 active projects. So this midterm evaluation is just a milestone in the overall project timeline. So after this midterm evaluation, we are going to have another 2 months of codings. So consider the incoming presentations only as an intermediate result. But students already have something to present, and we are happy to give them opportunity to present it. And we will really appreciate any feedback from the community, especially from Jenkins developers and users. Yesterday we had 3 presentations. There was a presentation from Minudrik about support core plugin improvements, like submission of Jira tickets to bug tracker from Jenkins web UI, etc. Then there was presentation about external workspace manager from Alex, and there was presentation about automatic documentation publishing to Jenkins.io by Cynthia. You can find recordings of this presentation in Google. We are going to publish a blog post with human readable links soon, but now you can just go to the blog post and access this link, and you will be able to watch the presentations. Today we are having one presentation by Samat Davleshan. It's about Jenkins web UI job page improvements, like item creation page or item configuration. We also going to have another demo about plugin documentation publishing. Yesterday, Cynthia said that there will be a demo today, but unfortunately there won't be a demo. And if you want to get the current project status, please feel free to contact Cynthia directly. So now we are going to have only one presentation, and I'll hand over the presentation to Samat soon. During this presentation, if you have any questions, you can raise them using Koi tab in YouTube. You should be able to see it on the left side panel. And once you click, you will be able to enter your question and to vote for other questions. And after the presentation, we will try to answer these questions. You can also ask questions in Jenkins IRC channel and in Jenkins community IRC channel. If you have any questions after the meeting, just follow the links provided by students in their presentations. That's all from my side. Samad, are you ready to present?
Yes, sure.
Okay, just share your screen and I'll hand over the presentation.
All right. Can you see my screen now?
Not yet. Okay, it should be working now.
All right. Can I start?
I'm just waiting till it appears in YouTube. Okay, now you can start.
All right. Hello, everybody. My project for GSoC is Jenkins Web UI improvements, and mostly for job creation and configuration. So, short introduction about me. My name is Samat. I'm from Moscow, from Russia. A few interesting facts. A rather interesting field of study for GSoC is business. I also interned into big tech companies, so have some ideas how things are going there. And last year, I developed a website for startup projects, so there I learned some web development. So let's start with my first project, new job creation pop-up. Actually, for this presentation, I decided to divide my work in three projects, one after another, and we'll go one project after another, starting with this pop-up or dialog window. So the project area is slash new job page. This is where Jenkins users create their jobs and items. So this page was improved in terms of UI recently, but I believe there's still room for improvement, and mainly is the ability actually to not to reload the page, not to reload the Jenkins, and actually just open it in JavaScript immediately on whenever page you're currently in. So the goal would be something like that. Now you can see the pop-up. So now when it will start over, you will see that there is no need to reload the page. So basically the goal would be to create such pop-up so that users would be able to interact with Jenkins faster. So the value for the community are quite obvious. It is easier to navigate and faster to interact. So let me quickly show in a demo right now. So currently you can see that I'm in Jenkins, and for example, if I go to Manage Jenkins tab and I want to create a new item, so I can immediately open it, and then if I change my mind, I can quickly close it. So generally better interaction experience. So the next project would be configuration page help edit. So the project here is the /configure page for the jobs, and as discussed, it seems that there are such things that could be improved in terms of this blue question mark on the right part of the configuration page, where people can change their where people see their help information but currently cannot change. But it seems that it could be much more convenient for users to have this editable help information, and that would lead to less need to Google, as some users would be able to see their answers right there, more relevant information, and generally users may just use this, click this blue question mark more often, since it helps actually. And the last project is was proposed as optional, but I really hope to finish it, since I think this is a really cool one, and in terms of not being very hard but still kind of impactful. So this is the home page where all Jenkins users go to, and it seems that there are, as highlighted on the slide, there is like some UI elements that may be improved. So first of all, on the top left is this views tab. Actually, it seems that there is no need for the separate My Views page needing to reload to have separate creation processes. So that could kind of make navigation easier, not to distract the attention. So putting actually all views under one tab, and then possibly moving some of these UI elements under Manage Jenkins page, since many of these elements may not be used very often, but still they kind of take the premium position on the home page and are always visible, what may not be necessary, and maybe it's possible to clean up UI and having some the same benefits. So the current status to up to this point, I made all the projects related only to the first one, so the new job creation and name validation. So the first one is I showed previously. The pop-up actually can be created. So currently I have a pull request for this on GitHub. It certainly has some issues to solve, but it is working, and so hopefully soon will be completed. So I actually used this jelly, so you can see it's similar to the /new job interface. So I just put it into pop-up, and now it can be created from other pages as well. Then new job validation. So initially I proposed that it may not be very difficult change to make, but still kind of seemed to me like an obvious improvement, that people do not have to wait until they click OK to see if their name contains invalid characters. And so I think it is reasonable to check if the name has an invalid character after each inputted character, so I added that also. And finally, this kind of on top of things, I proposed some UI improvements. Those are surely not to be necessarily added, but some of them could appeal to the community, and I would like to further discuss if some of those make sense, such as you can see, division of item types into 2 columns to save space, and moving of the header, and so on. The conclusion, self-assessment of the current status. As I showed in the previous 3 slides, there are currently 3 pull requests. Those are under review. All of them are working, and all of them have some tasks to complete, and I really hope that very soon I will complete them, and then I will discuss with the community about the possibility to merge them. And interestingly, several things took either too much time or much less time than expected. For example, things that took a lot of time is inclusion of JavaScript library to use this pop-up, I needed to include CSS and JS files, and I was expecting it to be a simple standard procedure, but it turns out that there are some difficulties with global scope of jQuery with proper inclusion and proper processing into correct directories. So that was not as simple. And also there were nice things that were simpler. That, for example, this pop-up window. Happily, I did not have to work with getting all of the JSON of job types, processing it, and then creating a post request to create actually the job. It was all handled automatically by simple inclusion of jelly file from /new job to site panel.jelly. On community interactions, I would say that mentors and community were very responsive. Usually I would have a question and then write it on a group chat and or on mailing list, and usually within 24 hours or much more often less, I would receive a hint or a answer on what could I do. And also interestingly, that nobody knows everything, so there were often moments when with mentor or with another community member, I would have to work for several questions, several trials to actually make a decision and actually find the solution for my problem. On the next steps, so first of all, I would like to solve the current issues, then move towards the middle three are for the configuration page, and the final one is to work with the home page. And of course, after the first part, when the main issues are resolved with this pop-up, name validation, and UI changes, so I'd like to discuss with the community, with people who are involved, about the possibility of putting my changes into the project, about how and when it can be implemented and put into the production. So this is also an important thing to mention. And that's actually it. So those are the links, my pull requests, mailing list, and my proposal. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for your attention. Any questions?
Thanks for the presentation, Samad. I do not see questions coming from YouTube and from IRC. I do not also see much questions. So regarding the participants, are there any questions?
Oleg, could you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry because I'm late in this meeting. Congratulations for the work. I have a question about the new item. My question is related with the proposal sent by GAS a few minutes ago about the item categorization. How do you think that this feature can work with this approach?
I'm sorry, could you repeat which feature was discussed?
Okay, so I'm going to close my window. Few months ago, GAS sent a proposal about item categorization, right? My concern here is how these features will work here.
Oh yes, actually,
Because as far as I know, the current new item option is based in the current state. When you have a new, you have a listing of items but currently we are not using this item categorization. But the idea is to include the item categorization for probably next week. Or I have to pending to finish my PR, but
Yeah, actually, it's a bit tricky since there is a lot of work going on currently, and some of things that I proposed only a month ago, they are already kind of changing. Um, so to be honest, I'm trying to look into the current work, but usually I try to be open
I
and
think
ask.
someone did ask about that. I think some weeks ago, but we didn't really have an answer. There was, if it's the same question I was thinking about, there was a comment he made about there being some JSON data structure that categorized the different, and he was wanting to know what to do with them, and we didn't really have an answer at the time. So I don't think anything he's
Yeah,
doing is in conflict with that. I don't think it doesn't overlap. Uh, the benefits here are sort of small and focused, but very useful. So I think it would probably work nicely with it, at least as a idea.
yeah. So there is no like concrete answer that currently it's not directly handled.
And how does the current pop-up work with folders?
With which folders?
There is folder type in Jenkins, and I would be interested to know, do you plan any integrations with folders plugin just in order to have a better visualization, etc.? For example, folders allow setting additional settings which influence items, like folder properties, and these properties may also impact what's available in folders. For example, filtering of job types, etc. Do you plan to somehow integrate your extension with these features? Obviously, it's available via Jenkins core extension points.
Well, I was working on it, but yeah, possibly. Initially, in my proposal, I was thinking about the possibility of pre-configuration, that having some main features pre-configured, such as um, control version like Git, and so if a user needs only to several settings to be made, not to make him go to the configure page. But currently, no, I was not working on it, but yeah, possibly if this is interesting.
Yeah, so if I understand you correctly, it would be a kind of a job configurator plugin which allows to generate the jobs on the fly using dialogues. So maybe you could just consider creating extension points which allow implementing it in plugins, and then you can integrate existing plugins in order to get such feature. I'll paste the link to the plugin in our.
I think pre-configuration wizard is consists of a lot of work to implement it, and we can not we maybe not successfully ends with this proposal during the GSoC.
Okay, thanks for the answer. Are there any other questions?
Samat, this is Tom here. Samat, first of all, I think this is really good. I think it's a really nice enhancement. Irrespective of how it works with other, like in other places in the UI, like folders or whatever, I still think it's really nice, and I'm sure it can be got work in other places. But so one of the things that kind of annoys me about the new item page and the old one as well was, and I think I mentioned this to you before, was the fact that the user is asked to do multiple things at once, if you like. So they're asked to do 3 things basically on this form. They're asked to enter a name, they're asked to select a type, and then they're asked to press a button to go to proceed, if you like the OK button at the bottom. I wonder would it and maybe it's outside the scope of this, but I wonder how hard would it be to make it into an actual like an actual wizard where it's done in steps. So you kind of maybe see like a crumb thing at the top where it's enter the name, select the type, proceed, or is that?
Yeah, actually, I remember we were discussing it with you, and I also think this is possibly better user experience and less time to think what to do, like one step at a time. And yeah, I think this is possible to change because so far for me, in terms of time consuming was mostly this kind of the internal structure, this, as I said, using the libraries and kind of putting it all correctly. But in terms of the actual CSS and JavaScript changes, there were not much. And personally, I think this change is not particularly difficult, just to show and hide different regions. Yeah, maybe worth the effort. So yeah, I'm thinking about that.
Yeah, and as for the issues you had with the jQuery is a particularly kind of troublesome library. Like the issues you had, I think there are things we could do to make that better. After talking to you the other day, like I think there are things we can do to kind of automate some of the stuff you had to do. Maybe I don't know whether you ended up creating that detached plugin for remodel or whatever, but I think we could make that. There is work we could do to make that better if jQuery plugins were something that a lot of people are using. This is probably anyway, very good.
Okay, thanks for the question. There is another question from Michael in the chat. He's curious how the editing of help markdown will be submitted. So are you going to end up with a pull request or with other solution?
Sorry, let me read. How will be submitted?
I'm pretty sure you haven't started thinking in detail about it. Can you guys hear me okay now?
I can hear, but it's kind of laggy.
Okay.
Yeah, there is snow in Australia.
It's the end of the world.
Right.
Well, probably so, because I was thinking that this is also the markdown function is also not like the crucial one, but still could be helpful and it wouldn't be very difficult to implement through either through many existing libraries that I kind of found easily, or by myself, maybe some simpler functions. So yeah, I think.
Could you please switch to the presentation slide which mentions this feature, just to allow others to follow the discussion?
This one?
Yes. So actually I can provide some background about this feature. Actually we were discussing it during student application period, Samat created a good document with many proposals about potential web UI improvements, and there were also proposals coming from community. So actually, originally I proposed this feature, and the background is very simple. If you have a large-scale Jenkins installation, and if you have several hundred of users on it, it would be really useful to have your own custom help for users, because sometimes say you have to document something internal, or you can just modify all plugins to have good docs. So this feature seems to be very useful for big installations, but honestly I think that the best implementation would be to somehow provide extension points in Jenkins and to allow implementing these extension points elsewhere, because some people like HTML, but we know that HTML is generally insecure. Other people may like Markdown or Skidoc syntax or whatever else. And if we have extension point in Jenkins core and implementation in a plugin, it would be much more flexible solution, because it means that it would be possible to automatically inject help from automated flows, etc., etc. So regarding Michael's question, I think that the best way would be to have this feature separated into plugin and Jenkins core. But yeah, of course, it depends on the project time capacity, because this implementation would require more time. Yeah. Michael said that this project is very broad because it's not focused on one feature compared to other GSoC projects.
Well, yeah, for me it's also interesting that although like some particular changes may not seem kind of very big or significant, actually I think the fact that this is on home page or new item page, which are constantly used by like the ever like growing big Jenkins community, I think it's for me it's interesting to work on that, imagining that even if like it's tiny little bit, like it's like a millisecond of someone's time, it's still I think helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I think username validation is one of those too. The way it is now can be a little bit confusing, and making that what seems like a small improvement has a big impact.
Yes. So I don't see other questions coming from RC or Hangouts. I like to, so Manuel wanted to present something related to item creation pages, and I would like to hand over the presentation to him just to continue the discussion. Manuel, are you ready?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to try to share my screen. Okay, could you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Oh, this is the current state of new item new item page. Here you can see the common options for the name of the item, the listing of the different items that in this current installation of Jenkins are available. But the current implementation is prepared to include a new features. The new feature is the option to classify the different item in different groups. Okay, everything in Jenkins core. When you define a new item in Jenkins core, you have the possibility to say, hey, this item belong to this category. Okay, by default, Jenkins core provides three categories, three different categories, but there is an extension point to include new category. But by default, Jenkins core in the current version provides three categories. I'm going to show you how this works with a very simple things. If you look at the current source code in the web page, you can see this semantic organization. You have a container for different items, and you have one specific item for the different category. But currently, the categories are hide, okay, are not visible. Okay, if you remove this CSS class, you can see the final result. Okay. My new PR in Jenkins core is the second part of this story in order to include these new features. But everything is ready currently in Jenkins core for include this, but I have to polish some details. And I think that this is very good feature provided and designed by GAS. I think that is very interesting for the user experience when you have several items, because when you have only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items, probably 6 or 7 items is not useful. But when you have 10, 11, 13 items, I think that this feature could be interesting. The main goal for the new PR is to provide a very simple algorithm in order to decide when a category is rendered or not rendered. Okay, rendering or not rendering. Okay, this is the thing that I would like to show with the member of this meeting.
Okay. So, Samat, what do you think about this feature?
Yeah, I actually think this doesn't conflict with what I showed. If you can show my screen, or without that, I didn't remove anything, so I simply added that categories are rows. I asked on I think mailing list, so I didn't hear that there is much with categories. So yeah, I think so. Those headers, those names of categories can be included in for example, in my case, that wouldn't break things, so that doesn't conflict, I think.
Sabat, I think that is not everything is compatible currently, because when you create the pop-up for the new user experience to create a new item, probably you can use a flat mode, right? You can use something similar like your current implementation. I think that the category is something options. Okay. If you prefer to use a flat listing, is completely fine.
So what is not quite correct, or so what would be your suggestion, or I didn't quite get it.
To me, the new item categorization is helpful when you have a listing in vertical, a listing of a lot of items, okay? But I don't know how a pop-up will works when you have 10, 12, or 16 items
Okay.
in the pop-up, because
Yeah.
it's very obvious that in the pop-up side you have a reduced space if you compare with the full screen page.
Yes. Well, yeah, I agree that,
But does the pop-up have to be as narrow as it is? Like the new item dialog, new item currently in Jenkins is effectively modal anyway. So there's no, other than aesthetic reasons, there's no hard limitation on the width of the pop-up. It's just a convenience of how quickly you can access it.
Okay.
Okay. So I
And
think
many users won't have that many items to start with. Like this list that you see here is effectively if you do the recommended plugins installed, you get these, but you'd have to go out of your way to get some more. And it's odd that multi-configuration project and external job is listed so prominently there when there's really not that many of them. But that's another issue.
Well, my plan for obviously not this week because I'm very busy with my work, but I would like to finish my PR probably for the next week. I would like to share the result with all of you in order to receive feedback about the new item categorization. Okay?
Okay, thanks, Manuel. I propose to take the rest of the discussion offline because actually this meeting is more or less about student presentations. So do we have any other questions about the project or any other comments from mentors?
I have. I'd like to see on how it will be work with all available plugins to which provides new job types. On how long it should be, how long the list will be, and how it will be easy to interact with it.
so you mean as Manuel said, if the number of item types grows big, or so I didn't quite get the question.
The question is how it will be work with more than 16 plugins installed, and how long this scroll will be.
If you install plugins that bring their own job types. When I started building plugins, I can't remember who it was. It was someone was telling me, don't build new job types. Work with existing job types. So hopefully that's an unrealistic scenario that there's too many different job types, because to me it seems like a bit of an anti-pattern in Jenkins that everyone creates their own special job type when often what they want is a build step in freestyle or a pipeline or something like that. So I think it's increasingly an edge case that you'd have very, very specific job types.
Well, yeah, I think so far it is not handled, so those are just will just increase in the same manner, so the just pop-up will become higher and higher. But maybe if the statistics, if many users have like a lot of job types, I think it is possible to handle it with simple JavaScript somehow. Gonna hide and show maybe some categories, for example, as Manuel said. And also, actually, one of the ideas I was talking is some kind of control of job type description. So, for
for example, like external job has longer description and maybe it doesn't really, there's not much need to do that since it's harder to read, see all the job types.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think Samat's done a pretty good job. There's been a lot to learn in this area, and I quite liked two of his observations. One was the unexpected time on things that either took longer than he thought, other things took much less. Particularly stuff to do with detached jQuery. That's kind of not many people would know about that. That's a good observation. That's a fact of life. And the other thing he mentioned, I can't remember if he said it in this one or the trial presentation, was that no one knows everything. So that to find anything out, you often have to talk to quite a number of people, and that's something you just got to discover. It's too big for one person. So kudos to Samat for pushing things this far, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next.
All right, thanks.
And I get the impression that Manuel would probably like to spend some time talking with you if he can find some spare time in his busy weeks in coming up. So that would be really good, Manuel.
Yeah, I'm very sad for that because I would like to be more involved in this story in order to provide a different, it's not a different point of view, but a new point of view. But the last 2 weeks were very busy to me, okay? But I hope to get a spare time in order to provide feedback, okay?
Okay. So if there is no other questions, thanks a lot to mentors, students, and of course all meeting participants for joining the presentation. If you have any questions after the presentation, you can follow up in the Jenkins mailing list. Samat has a very long thread there. And of course, we are looking forward to see you on the next sessions on August, when we have full presentations of GSoC projects by students. Okay, that's
Thank
all
you.
from my side.
Thank you for organizing everything, Oleg.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Tyler, could you please stop